Well, good morning, everyone. We are here for another amazing morning. Hope you're ready for an amazing morning and an amazing week. Rebecca, are you with us this morning?
Yep, I'm here.
There she is. Chipper, ready to go, right?
Almost.
Almost. Okay. All right, Rebecca, what's our topic on the table for today? First of all, I want to thank Randy for joining in. Randy's with us on Zoom. Thank you, Randy, for being here. We'll have some more jump in, I'm sure, here shortly. So we are also live on Facebook, YouTube. You can catch us there. Okay, Rebecca, what's our topic today?
Our topic today is how important are the little things? How important are the little things?
Our topic today is how important.
Sorry.
I'm guessing you have Facebook up. You must be seeing from both directions, yeah? Get a little feedback?
I was trying. But it's when we have major projects, every major project has some little things that go with it. And sometimes some of those little things get forgotten.
Yep.
The small things. And when we forget those small things, how much of a, I guess, detriment or how much does it prolong finishing the big project, not getting the little things done?
So what do you think? Give us some feedback from your end.
Oh, I think that sometimes we forget some of the details, and I do think that is a crucial part. Even details of telling somebody, "Hey, I'll send you that form," or "Hey, I'll get this to you," and then we don't do it for 3 or 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one, it I don't want to say it shows character, but I don't even know how I want to put it. I guess that it shows the lack of faith in somebody when we say that we're going to do something and we don't do it. Even those little minute things, And I have a horrible habit of that, and I will write an email 2 days later and say, "Hey, I'm really sorry, I forgot about this." But I think it takes away from the bigger picture.
So you've struggled with that. You follow up with an email, and you want to address, what you've missed as quick as you can. I'm sure of that. And at the same time, what if one of those things you miss is a big thing versus just one of the small things? What if you've missed something really big? How do you address that?
I guess for me, it's addressing it the same way. My background is in the service industry, and you apologize, you commit to doing better, and you fix it as well as you can.
What are some? I know you worked in the food industry, and you worked in that service industry for quite some time, and you've had some opportunity where things went south. I mean, you're serving somebody food, cooks don't have it, or they cook it wrong. What are some of the things that you do to make it right?
There is only so much that you can do. You can offer them the free meal. You can offer to replace it. You can get them something different. And there is only so much that you can do. But trying your hardest to rectify the situation is the best part. I mean, that's the part for them, for yourself, just to make everybody, I go back to the whole saying that the customer is always right, and no, that is not. the situation, but I do think that there is a way to rectify every situation.
The customer's not always right. Haven't we always learned that that's the scenario? The customer is always right.
That is what you were taught for many, many years, but here again, personal opinion, I don't agree with that.
So even if you don't agree with it, what's the best way to address it when you know a situation isn't right, but they believe they're right, and yet you know it's not? What are some ways that you can address that?
Well, I think like we've talked, communication is the key, and just trying to rectify it, doing what's best for each other, doing what's best for the customer and for yourself. But like I said, there is a way to do that, and if you can't, then you just both have to move on. But I think doing everything that you can to rectify it, yes.
So whether it's big or small, those are the things you want to do, right?
Right.
Okay, so I'd like to dive in and chat on this a little bit. You okay with that?
Sure.
Cool. So when we think about the big things versus the little things in business, first of all, we have to identify, is this a big thing to me or a big thing to my customer? Is it a big thing to my peers? When we look at the big things, we look at the little things, how are other people perceiving this thing, this quote unquote thing? If we're looking at something in the business and maybe it's a project that we have to do, but in our mind, this project is not a big deal. It's not a big concern. It's nothing that we should be losing sleep over. It's absolutely not a big thing to us, but maybe to our superiors. In fact, I just went through this personally a couple of weeks ago, and I was looking at something that in my mind just wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't that important, if you will. But to the superiors, it was very much important. It was extremely important to them. And they were looking at it from a totally different perspective than I was looking at it. So one of the things we have to do in business if we're going to be really, really successful is identify what is a big thing, why is it important to certain people and maybe less important to others, and how do we put it into the right perspective for the entire team. See, this is something that I've learned in that process. I still look at this as though it's not a big thing, but I do look at it as an important thing. I've changed my perspective to something that I used to see as small, unimportant, to something that to some people in the organization is very big. I don't necessarily see it as a big thing, but I do change my perspective now to see it as important. So that is how I have learned in the processes of identifying these big things and little things and all this other stuff, as I want to identify what truly is big to me, what's important to my role, my position. See, there are big things in my position, there's big things in my role, and there's important things in my role. And 2 or 3 of the things in my role are big, important things. To someone else, it may be big and important in their role, but in my role, in relationship to that topic, it's only important. It's big to them, but important to all people, to everybody on the team. That's part of what we have to get really, really good at is, are we organizing things in their right boxes? Are we putting things into the right perspective? And that's something that I think is a learned trait. It's something that we have to intentionally do as members of a team, as members of an organization. We get really good at prioritizing and putting into the right perspective the things that are going on in our life. See, I know that some of the things I'm dealing with to other people on the team, they're little things. They're little things, they don't matter, it's not important. However, to me and my role and the future of the success of my role, it's very important. It's a big thing and it's very important. So those are some of the things that I have learned over time to assess the little things in business, if you will. So
Well, I think that comes into our business. You know, things that I think are highly important, you may think are just a little thing that needs to be put on the back burner. And I think it is that perspective, and it's how we deal with what we deal with on a day-to-day basis in our company,
mhm.
or things that priorities, things that I think are high priority, that yes, I focus on as being a C person. To you, they're not, and we need to do this. And that's where that communication comes in. I think of a car, that check engine light comes on, but the vehicle's driving fine and everything's going good, so you don't really think about it. But then the longer that you drive it, maybe starts making a little noise, so you turn the radio up a little louder, and then before too long you're sitting on the side of the road, because it was that little thing, had you addressed it at the beginning, would have prevented maybe issues in the end.
Okay, but in my defense, Rebecca, the check engine light went off. So everything is good. See, we got too carried away.
Well,
Right?
thankfully, yes, it went off, and hopefully it's not just because the light went out or something, but
Well, it could be. I even thought about putting a piece of black tape on the dash just so I couldn't see it anymore. Did think about that. All right. Well, we've got some people here on Zoom. Feel free to jump in. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts. How do you in your business? How do you and your teammates? How do you guys look at the big things and the little things? And how do you look at what's important or identify what's not important? How do you guys go about doing that? Wow.
Well, I'll jump in since I've been here from the start, I guess.
There you go. How you doing, Randy? Good to hear from
I'm
you.
doing fine. I guess on the way I look at things, it's not big things or little things. It's important things. But I'm very detail oriented as opposed to some of my staff. They're a bigger picture, but as they traditionally think. But we try to track everything, and I track everything in my mind, and the rest of the guys want to write everything down, and so I struggle with that because it's all in my head, and they want it wrote down so that they can keep track too. So we're doing that kind of stuff to try to keep things from falling through the cracks.
Yeah, that's a really critical element, as you build a team, Randy. What are some things that you've learned through that process, going from really being a solopreneur yourself to moving into being more of a team leader? What are some of the things you've learned in that process?
Probably the biggest thing I've learned is not everybody thinks like me.
Yeah. Okay.
And I have to adapt to the way they think, sort of. The way things process in their minds. I've got to kind of adapt to all three of them in some form or fashion. Maybe not drastic in any one direction, but I have to always keep in mind that they're all different, just like me. So I got to communicate different to each of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
well, talking about, so it's I go back to the big things and the little things, and something that I have learned is something that may be second nature to me, that should just be common sense or something. To other people, they don't understand that. So for me to expect something we talk about doing the task and seeing the big picture at the end, but the way to get to the task, we don't talk about it. We don't talk about those little steps to get there, because to us it's second nature or it's common sense, but to somebody else it's not. And so then I think pieces of that get dropped. Nobody's fault. It's just, here again, perspective.
Whose perspective is right?
Well, I don't think either one of them are wrong. It's just trying to communicate it to each other is the big piece.
Yeah, communication.
Something that, you and I struggle with sometimes.
No, we don't have communication issues. Do we? I think
On a
everyone can
daily
tell that
basis,
right
maybe?
here is a great example of a lack of communication. Or for sure a misunderstanding. Now, can we address one other thing that you brought up, Rebecca? And then I would love to hear from the team on some of this stuff.
Go ahead.
Okay. One of the things you mentioned, and I know this is a topic that you've brought up multiple times in different settings. The idea that the customer may not always be right, and that is something that I think is highly misunderstood in the marketplace. There's times that I'm not right. I know, Rebecca, this is hard for you to grasp, but there are times when
No,
I'm
but
not
I'm just
right.
glad that this is being recorded, so I have that.
Yeah, there are times. Excuse me. There are times when I'm not right. However, I believe I'm right, and there's a belief system that I have that drives that belief that I am right. Right. So everybody has that, and that's what I think as leaders we need to understand. One of the key things is to be able to understand within ourselves that when someone is arguing to be right, they believe they are. They believe they are right. And that's what we need to be able to come to agreement with, is that they believe they're right. And we believe that we're right. But what we have to do is, like the tagline that we have at the company, dear, seek truth, gain wisdom, and serve others. So when there's an element there where there's a strong belief that you are right about a subject, a topic, an idea, when there's a strong belief that you or someone else is right, then we need to come to an agreement that we believe we're right. We come to an agreement that we agree together that we believe someone is right. And that's something I've learned in the sales space. When a customer believes that they are right, I totally agree with them. I agree with them 1,000% that they believe they're right. Now, my job as a leader, my job as an influencer, is to help them see a different perspective. It's my job to help them see maybe something they hadn't thought about before. Because it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a right or a wrong. It means that there's a different potential perspective. There's a different viewpoint. And that's part of what we have to get really good at as leaders, is understanding, could I be wrong? Could I be wrong in my thinking? Could I learn something from this person? This is something I've learned in the water industry, and it's opened my eyes to see a whole different perspective in agriculture, in the water space, by simply looking at other people's opinions about topics, especially around politics and different policy and regulation around water. See, I have a pretty die-hard belief system about regulation and policy. However, over the last 5 or 6 years, as I've worked with different people in public policy, as I've worked with different people at pretty high levels of government, I've come to understand and see things from a different perspective. And that has allowed me to say, okay, so I'm still right in some aspects, but I'm actually wrong in others. I'm wrong in other aspects. And those are things that I've had to adapt my belief system on. I've had to learn and grow. That's actually where growth is happening. When I can see another perspective, I can take the truth that I know today and elevate that. I can elevate that truth. And when we can elevate a truth element, and I can come to a different level of agreement with somebody, I can come to a different level of belief with somebody, now all of a sudden I look back on it, and what that was an increase in wisdom. That was an increase in wisdom. Sometimes we try to fight so hard to be right that we do see the customer as being wrong. We see the other person as wrong. So when we say the customer is not always right, what does that really mean? What do we really mean by that? Are they actually right? Do they believe they're right? What perspective do they believe is right? What portion of this topic do they believe is right? That they are right on. So I think, in my opinion, we have to go a little bit deeper. We have to go deeper into the conversation. In our sales training, our leadership training programs, we talk about, what do people believe? Why do they believe it? And that's something we have to get really, really good at, is what do people believe? Why do they believe it? What's driving that belief system? What's driving that opinion? Because that helps us see them, understand them, connect with them, work with them, and be a part of their life in a totally different perspective, in a totally different way. So I think there's an element there where, as leaders ourselves, as influence people, we have to be a little cautious. Do we understand what people believe to be right? Do we understand? Could it be that we're wrong? Could it be that maybe we've fallen behind and there's education that's happened, and maybe I haven't been updated on some of the newest education? Could it be that I'm not looking at it right? And that's something that I think we as leaders need to be a lot better at. So I'd love some thoughts, opinions, ideas on things of that nature. Anyone?
Hey, Colin.
Hey, David.
As you know, with a small company, going a startup, go through different stages. But a couple of times recently, I've lost key people, and then you're left to cover the gap. And so, whether it's big things or little things, some things have to drop. I mean, we can't do it all because you've lost bandwidth, and that's a tough one sometimes, prioritizing. What are the big things or little things? Because what I see, big things or little things are probably different to the people that no longer are being supported, because you've lost a guy at the area, and so you just don't have that bandwidth. So best will in the world, it's hard to try and cover, and really, it's just a comment trying to make up for that lost bandwidth, that lost person, who whether it's in a specific role or whether it's a specific geography. If you don't have the people to cover, then you've kind of got to prioritize, and some balls are going to get dropped. So it's that's my priority. But then if you're the other person who gets dropped, then you obviously look at it a completely different way. So I'm not sure what you sort of, if you got any comments about that. But it is hard. You got to sort of pull back and think, okay, what do I need to do to get by, in this situation? And which balls do get dropped? How is that going to impact me going forward? Can I recover from that, or is it just, get dropped and kind of like the eggs get smashed? That relationship gets irreparably damaged. So it's a tough one, but something that I've had to go through, I guess, a couple of times over the last few years. And it's I'm not always sure that I've made the right decision, but it's sort of just kind of keep going. You hope that you make the right decision, but
I think one of the biggest things with that, when you find yourself in that situation, communication about it is, say that when you spoke with somebody at the beginning, that you stated, we're going to be able to do this or provide this, but then something happens 3 months down the road that you're not able to do that. But just saying, hey, because there is only so much that you can do. But being open and honest and communicating with them, and not ghosting them, or, I'm scared to talk to them because I don't want to have to tell them this. I think most of the time people appreciate that, even if it's not going to work out the way that they wanted it to. There are going to be some that are going to be upset, and that's just the way it goes. But I think the talking about it, the openness about it, is probably the biggest key to that.
Yep. Well, those are some really good points, David. Any other thoughts on these topics this morning?
I just had one question when you were talking about what people believe.
Sure.
How do you tell somebody that what they believe is wrong?
Well, I know where that's coming from. Oh, that was a fun day, Brittany.
So a little background story on that, you guys don't know that we had a gentleman that went through one of our trainings, and we were talking about belief, and he says, well, how do you tell somebody that what they believe is wrong? And we're all like, whoa. But yes.
Yeah. Brittany, that's can you ask your question again? Is it how do you tell somebody that they're wrong? Was that your question?
Yeah, how do you tell somebody that what they believe is wrong?
Okay.
For the group, just think about that. Think about something that you believe in, and then how that that's a belief. And obviously our beliefs can change, but for that period in time, you believe that, and then somebody comes up to you and says that that's wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, the earth really isn't flat.
Yeah. Brittany, this is a subject that I love to talk about, actually, because it's one thing that I've tried my best over and this, it's part of it is where the UPI process come in our sales, right? Understand, propose, invest. And when you go through the understanding phase, we have to come to a point where we try to learn what someone believes, and I think it's one of the most important gifts that a person can create in their life. I think it's not tied to a personality style, it's not tied to anything except a character trait of being respectful. Number one, I want to respect someone's viewpoint. That's what I want to try and do. I want to respect a viewpoint, and after a while, and Rebecca and I have gone through this, we have different viewpoints on business, we have different viewpoints on marriage, we have different viewpoints on a lot of different things. And, I'm willing to look at different viewpoints and consider different viewpoints and different belief systems and different things of that nature. And it's important that we learn what the other person believes and why they believe it, like we mentioned earlier. And when we find out that fundamentally, or one of the things like we've talked about before, if their belief systems break the laws of nature, if they break the laws of our nature around us, there are certain laws in nature that exist. And one of the things that I've learned is these laws can really be brought to any conversation subconsciously or even consciously as you're listening to them. But the laws of nature cannot be broken. So what I'm listening for is that truth element connected to a law in nature. So what I'm really doing is self-judging if someone is indeed wrong or not, or maybe they just have a different viewpoint than me. Maybe they just have a different perspective than I have, and neither one of us really has a right or a wrong per se. But if they're breaking the laws of nature, it's not going to be right. It will eventually crumble. It will eventually hurt someone. Now that's a very, very deep conversation, but I think a big part of getting to the point, how do you tell someone they're wrong? You don't tell them they're wrong. I think you show them a better belief system. You show them something better. In other words, that's leadership. That's leading someone to a different perspective. And when we can listen to someone well enough that we can truly understand them, and if we listen to them well enough to see their perspective, then we can evaluate that and say, is it the right time for them to change their perspective? Is it the right time for them to believe something different? Is it the right time for them to be told that they're wrong in a respectful way? That the timing, the law of timing is one of them. You also have to think about, the law of what's the name of the law I'm looking for here? I can't say the word right now. Ties into I can't say it. It's like the law of navigation, right? Can we navigate them through a process, and is it the right time? Are they on the right path? Are they in the right frame of mind? All these different things. Intuition, the law of intuition. We have to understand that, are they ready to change their belief system? Are they ready to accept that maybe they're wrong? Are they in that position? Because if they're not, we still have more work to do as leaders. So I think a lot of it is, how do we understand through the laws of intuition, the laws of timing, our own foundational laws as leaders? How do we know that it's the right time to move them to a different belief system? And not necessarily tell them, but it's move them to a different belief system. Kind of like breaking a habit. You don't break a habit. I hate that term. Breaking a habit, I don't think is a good term. You create a new habit. You create a new habit. If there's a bad habit that you want to replace, you create it with a new habit that's better for you, better for the environment, future, whatever. So I think part of it is not necessarily telling them they're wrong, but bringing them to a different belief system. That's my perspective. That's my opinion. That's how I try to address it. I don't want to tell them they're wrong. I want to bring them to a different belief system. So that was a very long answer, Brittany. Hopefully that helps. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
So how do you decipher whether you're right or wrong?
I don't know that I am. That's my point. I don't know that I am. It's like, having discussions around, there's a lot of discussions we can have about, soil health, for example. Soil health and soil properties. There's a lot of things known about soil properties, but there's so many unknowns around this topic of soil health. And soil health in South Dakota is going to be totally different than soil health in Texas. And if a South Dakota farmer and a Texas farmer are talking, they're going to have two totally different belief systems. Are either one of them wrong? No, not necessarily. Do they need to change the other person's perspective? Not necessarily. So we have to, accept the fact that sometimes people can have a different viewpoint just because of where they live, just because of where they've grown up, the experiences that they've had. And it doesn't mean that they are wrong, doesn't mean that I am wrong. It just means that it's different. And that's part of what we have to come to an understanding on, is sometimes things are just different, and that's okay. In fact, it's good for us to be different. That's how we grow. Okay. Well, let's get this wrapped up. We're already 5 minutes over. I appreciate you guys hanging on and being a part of this with us. Any other final thoughts, comments, questions, or maybe a topic you'd like to cover in the future? Anybody have anything? All right. Well then, going once, going twice. Rebecca, you wanna wrap us up today?
Oh, I just want to thank you guys for being on again, and I'm glad we can have these discussions. I learn a little bit every time, so it's good to listen to everybody's perspective. So thank you.
Absolutely. We want to bring people on here because we're not always right. We don't always have the exact right answer all the time, but we're growing in this together. We want to grow with you guys. We want to grow into our next level of performance with you guys, and next level of success. So, all right, God bless, make it awesome, find joy in the journey, and we'll see you here next week.